if anything you'd like to say on this point of communication, you're totally open to do so, because it's certainly an important point.
Well, it also depends on, like I said in our email, was that it also depends on the kind of person's, like, for example, some people you can't get to sit through an hour-long presentation, let alone a 2-hour movie. So I would give them The Story of Stuff. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a really good movie about, just how we can't keep doing the linear consumption cycle. Some people, the Zeitgeist presentation on the Federal Reserve and the fractional reserve stuff doesn't, seem to click in their head, so I might hit them with money as debt, which, with its cartoon presentation, very simple, very easy to understand. But also when it comes to religion, like I was saying, my brother is an engineer. He's also extremely Christian, and if I showed him anything anti-religious, it would be an immediate turnoff. But if you talk about a world where everybody can take care of everybody and everything will be fine and there'll be no poverty and no war, there's no Christian who won't embrace that. At least most Christians won't have a problem with embracing that, not real ones. Sure. And it also depends on denominations. Like the Quakers, for example, the Society of Friends actually still very much exists, and I think that if you told them about our world, what it is that we propose, they would be totally on board with it, because they're nonviolent, pacifist people by nature and would love to see violence go away and a world where people take care of each other. And that's really it. I mean, when it comes to communications issues, a lot of it has to do with the values of the people in question. And Jacques talked with me about that a lot about when I was talking about being a spokesman, was that you have to be able to kind of analyze the person. It's like the story he gave about his mother and how he reached his mother about racism. He would never have been able to get through to her any other way. And that's kind of where it comes from. And I think that as far as that's also I said earlier, the value of the third-party political stuff is also just because you end up feeling like if you deal with the regular person, the person who really thinks that the whole world is about Obama versus McCain and doesn't understand the real stuff that's going on, those people are going to be a bit harder to reach. But somebody who's already at a third-party political convention, like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party, is already looking for answers, already realizes that the mainstream is not the way to go. And that's why I felt that that was where I was going to concentrate my energy. And definitely when it comes to communicating with different people, it's about the films you choose. I've actually been thinking about starting another band. I used to be a musician, and I had an idea of starting a band called Spirit of the Age, basically to go after Zeitgeist.
Sure.
And where I would just invite people from all over the world to participate, because I realized one day recently that you can make music over the internet so easily,
right.
Because I can record a vocal track, and then you can record the guitar, and then somebody else can record the drums, and then we make an MP3, and suddenly we have a song.
Yeah.
Because music is a good way to reach people, and in many cases, Jacques actually talks about how dangerous it can be, because people can become addicted to it, and you just keep listening to the same thing over and over again. But it's a matter of kind of turning those tools that the establishment uses to control you against them. It's actually why I have this little box that I hook up to my computer that hooks up to my television. So all of the stuff going into my television is, selected from the internet, and I think that people should do that too. Take control of your TV. Use it as a tool for yourself rather than for, advertising companies or whatever else. But,
absolutely.
And that was basically, it's a matter of trying to figure out how to relate to people, and that's, I think, something, we kind of turn our backs on politicians, but some of those people know how to do this. You have to be able to understand the value system of the person you're talking to. For example, some people don't want to hear about conspiracy theories, some people do. Some people don't want to hear about religion, some people do, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. That's one of the great things I learned from Jacques, and he gives all these great examples when you speak with Jacques about different things that he's done to turn around the KKK, to turn around all these groups that you would think would be untouchable in their indoctrination. But it can be done, and people can change, and that's an important realization. Back on your point on as far as art and music, I couldn't agree more. The advertising, corporate media, the graphic mind control, or for lack of a better expression, you have with television specifically. They hit you in so many different strategic ways with these aesthetics that have been very well orchestrated to get you to want to believe whatever it is that they're talking about. That can be used for positive means as opposed to negative means. Just as the John Lennon song Imagine is the example I give the most. What an amazing song, one of the most prolifically recognized songs probably in the world, at least according to Yoko Ono, and I think that probably holds true. And what is it? It has actually a meaning using the method of song. And I think using art and bands and everyone out there, that's why the Zeitgeist Media Project is very important to me. I want everyone to have some fun creating art and representations and expressions that actually have a tangible meaning. I think art without some form of social conscience is kind of meaningless because it's always a communicative affair. All art is communicative unless, you just paint for yourself and keep it in your basement and that's that. I don't know anybody that makes art that wants to keep it to themselves. It's a form of communication, and I think it's a powerful one at that. As the example I've used before about the great cathedrals, all that beautiful stained glass, I remember going to Mass myself, and you walk in, there's the beautiful music, and this amazing environment, and they give you a little bit of alcoholic wine, which sends a weird shiver down your spine.
Right.
Especially if you're a kid, and they put that little wafer on your tongue, you go back, and they have these calls and answers. It's just the most profound form of brainwashing, which could easily be used for positive ends. It doesn't have to be for the establishment control.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, the 60s music had a lot to do with the getting out of the war, in a lot of ways. I mean, some of it was kind of drug-related, but you get my point. There was still a very serious theme. It was like an anthem of a generation. It was a way to reach people. Also, you'll notice the trend, to me, is that the music also kind of got dumbed down for a long time. I mean, I used to be able to listen to Metallica or Megadeth and be able to get a political charge of why we should change the world, and then the music movement changed. It was like all of a sudden it was the grunge thing really, for example, I don't want to offend anybody, but the grunge thing is actually what got me out of music, because I was like, what is this stuff? These people aren't thinking. This isn't socially conscious. This doesn't have any purpose. It's not making me happy to be alive. It's not making me, it was just crap. And it's starting to change, though. I'm noticing a serious change in the music industry, and that's actually what made me hope that we could create a band, called Spirit of the Age, where we talked about what it is that we wanted to do.
Sure. No, I think that's a great idea. Anything like that is certainly effective, and I agree with you entirely. Somehow we went from 70s, 80s, and 90s to this really twisted gesture coming from the 80s, 90s. In the hip hop world, this bling, gun, drug association that's slowly fading. Whereas suddenly for the whole a decade, everyone just wanted to have a bunch of money. It really permeates. It's unbelievable the effect that this type of media has, which is why even the people that don't like my movies and they say they're sensationalized, I do target those films to have an emotional effect. And I think in the end, there's only so much you can do by talking to people directly. You have to get under their skin somehow in communication, and that goes back to your identification point. It has to be relatable in some way. We have to use the advertising techniques against the system, for lack of a better expression. If you use it in an honest way, they're not just contrivances and manipulation. It has to have an honest focus. But I completely agree. That's a very terrific point. Point. Yeah.